Welcome back, and starting the first segment of this show with the press review, and we are joined in the studio by Mr. Mohamed Sheta, media expert. Hello, sir, and good morning.
A very beautiful good morning to you and to all your distinguished viewers.
Thank you. And first we'll go off with the main headlines in Al-Ahram newspaper, where we read President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a meeting on Tuesday at the presidential headquarters in Cairo with the PM Sharif Ismail to discuss a number of local development issues. The meeting was attended by Presidential Aid for National Projects Ibrahim Mahleb, Minister of Housing and Urban Communities Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, as well as a number of officials and governors. The meeting discussed the latest developments in the implementation of the new administrative capital. The president was briefed on the new designs of the government district, which will be built on 2 stages. And the meeting tackled the national project to protect and develop the lakes in the Nile Delta and Upper Egypt. It seems they are still going on with the new administrative capital, and it seems the process is moving very fast. So what's your comment?
Well, a few days ago, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that we need to find solutions and very effective solutions for the traffic problems we have in Cairo. So I assume that also the traffic situation in the capital will be definitely on the top priority list of the president, and of course also the design and the layout of the new capital will definitely be completely different than what we're currently seeing in Giza and Cairo, for example. They want to avoid the congestions as much as they can, and it's very crucial also for the development of the new capital and for attracting investors, because we need to transportation will be a key topic in this whole issue. The government needs to provide affordable transportation, environmental friendly transportation, and safe transportation for those who will be commuting between the new capital and the old capital, for example. And also this is something which will attract actually new investors. Some of the points which kept some investors away from investing in Egypt, or in Cairo specifically, is the traffic situation in Egypt. There is not one single foreign investor who is willing to spend every day 2 or 3 hours commuting from his house to the office, or 2 or 3 hours of his kids' lives spent on the school bus, for example. So I think this is going to be something very important. We actually had a seminar just last Sunday at the Egyptian Automobile Club, which is the affiliate of the International Automobile Federation based in Paris, and we were discussing actually this topic, and we were talking about the subject was the car prices and their effect on transportation and the investment in Egypt, and this is something very crucial. So I'm very happy that the president is taking this issue very seriously, and I hope that all the other ministers, like the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Environment, the Minister of Transportation, will sit together on one table and really find a good plan for the future capital of Egypt.
Okay, and moving to Al Masri Yom, we read the Ministry of Antiquities announced that the 26-foot of Ramses statue was unearthed lately in Mataraya. And it will be moved tomorrow to the Egyptian Museum along with other artifacts. The ministry said that they will start loading the statue on Wednesday and will begin its journey to the museum on Thursday. The Ministry of Antiquities, Dr. Khaled El-Anani, will organize a reception at the museum's garden on Thursday to celebrate the event. How did you see the big fuss that was made at first when they tried to take out the head of Ramses II with an old stuff?
Yes,
like a bulldozer and these things.
With all the equipment, you mean?
Well,
the thing is...
old technique, I mean.
Well, I watched a couple of talk shows actually discussing this issue, where they hosted some Egyptian experts who were involved in the unearthing of this Ramses statue, and also some German experts who were also involved in this from the German archaeological team. Actually, it was probably pretty unlucky how they communicated the whole thing, because people, of course, we saw all the pictures where kids were playing around the statue, and of course some rumors came up that the statue was broken by the bulldozer who was trying to take it out of its area. The Germans said that that the statue was already broken when it was beneath the surface. So I think we should look at the positive side of it. All the major newspaper and media like CNN, BBC, The Guardian, The New York Times, they all wrote about this issue in a very, very positive way. I think they should have made use of it at the ITB, which was the tourism, the biggest tourism exhibition in Berlin. Actually, I think they already knew that there was something and in this area, so they could have made much better use if they would have if the whole process was a little bit faster. And it should have been communicated at the ITB. Actually, regarding the ITB, I think they made some changes in the Egyptian stand at the exhibition at the show. Nevertheless, I think we're not very creative. From what I understood and from what I heard from the people participating there, it has been the same like this for a couple of years. They just go there, have their small booth, and then they try to sell some trips to the international tourism agencies or companies. I think we should have been a little bit more creative. For example, Jordan was giving away trips for the show visitors. So this is something which Egypt should have considered as well. A couple of years ago, the Egyptian embassy in Germany, for example, and both the tourism office as well as the press office of the embassy, they used to organize trips for the German media to come to Egypt prior to important events like the ITB, for example, and do some familiarization trips. I think this is something which the Egyptian ministries should also consider, and also. When Lionel Messi, for example, was here in Egypt a couple of weeks ago, and after this came the visit of Will Smith, for example, ex-minister Zahi Hawass was very unlucky in talking about Lionel Messi, where he described him as not so at a person which was not so smart. He's in not. The media.
He doesn't have any official title to speak.
Well, nevertheless, they brought him in to make the tour for Will Smith, and then in some media he talked about how interested Will Smith was into the Egyptian history, unlike Lionel Messi, for example. And he used some words which he chose not in a very wise way. So this, of course, had some very negative impact in the international media, and we should really try to avoid such happenings and misunderstandings like this in the future.
Okay, I'm moving to الأخبار اليوم newspaper. We read President of Parliament Ali Abdel confirmed on Tuesday that the House will discuss a controversial deal involving the transfer of 2 Red Sea islands under Egyptian control to Saudi Arabia, despite the agreement being annulled by a final court ruling earlier this year. Abdel said that the parliament will discuss a deal in accordance with its constitutional powers once some procedures and paperwork are completed on the next few days. The government approved the deal to hand over the 2 Red Sea islands of Tiran and Sanafir to the Gulf Kingdom in December and has sent it to the parliament for ratification. So, what's your comment? We already have a court say that Tiran and Sanafir are Egyptian, and all the procedures should stop for handing over these 2 islands to Saudi Arabia, and it's supposed to be a final decision for the court. And here we have, once again, the parliament says that they want to discuss it and see what they're going to do. So how do you see this step?
Well, I'm not really sure if this is if this is really useful, or if we really need this, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to have a more or less legal fight between the court and the parliament. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the court, the final court decision is the one which will rule, and not what the parliament will say, unless, of course, they change, or at least they might try to change some laws, which I think is very unlikely. So I think the final word will be for the courts, and this is what we'll have to wait and see. And it's a very complicated issue, actually. It created lots of problems for Egypt with the Saudi government, and actually not only with the Saudi government, but also the relation between the Saudi people and the Egyptian people got a little bit tense during the past couple of months, and we saw on the social media how both parties were fighting each other in a not so nice way. So hopefully this will end very soon, and then everything will go back to normal.
Okay, and moving to Al Masri اليوم, we read the Major General Mamdouh Shaheen, the Defense Minister's Deputy for Legislative and Constitutional Affairs, told MPs on Tuesday that the army is on the brink of eliminating terrorism from North Sinai. In a meeting held by the Parliament's Agriculture Committee and attended by Government of Ismailia Yassin Tahir, Shaheen said that the elimination of terrorism in North Sinai, which is very near, have been in effect, will pave the way for revoking the emergency measures that have been in effect there since 2013. Still, Sinai have Daesh on its land, and they are trying to be more powerful every day, and people moved from, the Christians especially moved from El Arish to Ismailia because they are afraid of the presence
not
of
only Christians, also
these,
some lots of
and of course after that, followed by many Muslim families also went to Ismailia after these terrorist attacks. So where the fight in Sinai is heading?
Well, as the Mayor General Mamdouh Shaheen was just saying, it's already, the army is on the brink of eliminating terrorism on the Sinai Peninsula, and also many world leaders like Donald Trump, for example, they really want to eliminate terrorism and make them disappear from the surface of the earth. And I think this is where all the international countries will come together and really try to fight it. And this is something very important. Fighting terrorism of course, the fact that people and families were moving from the Sinai to the other cities like Ismailia, for example, is actually something completely normal. I myself, I would move if the safety and security situation would be so tense. And of course, some people try to use this as a political issue. Nevertheless, it's more like a security issue, and I think it's very important that Egypt should try to eliminate the terrorism there as quick as possible, in order to make the environment safe for investors to come, for both the local investors as well as for the foreign investors to come and also invest in the Sinai. And I think this is very important.
Just to give you an example.
In the Middle East, just a couple of days ago, one of the huge American companies just bought an Israeli startup company for $15 billion. Yeah. So I just can't imagine that on the Sinai, which is so close to Israel, they are selling startup companies, and they have lots of startup companies. Most of the very big names like Google and others, they already bought themselves into some of these Israeli startup companies. And this is why I think we need to create a much better environment for both the young Egyptian people as well as the foreigners to come and invest, not only in Cairo but also in other parts of Egypt, like the Sinai, for example. I recall that the Egyptian Minister of Industry, Tariq Qabil, was just meeting a French delegation of investors, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, and of course he said that the Egyptian government will do everything for serious investors, and I think we really need to focus on the word serious, because we need serious investors both from Egypt as well as from outside Egypt. because over the past 20, 30 years, the main problem of Egypt is the productivity, for one thing, and the second thing, we didn't really become an export nation during the past 20 or 30 years. This is because most of the local investors were focusing more on the Egyptian market, because the profit margins in the Egyptian markets are tremendously huge, actually. We were talking about profit margins from 20 to 50%, which you will find nowhere in the world. So usually any profit margin for any investors anywhere in the world ranges between 5 to 10%. And this is why most of the investors were only focusing on the local Egyptian market, and they never had the intention or the aim to export their goods and make them have a good quality in order to be able to compete with the international product. And now we are really in a very unlucky situation that we had a very serious financial crisis during the past 5-6 years, and now with the devaluation of the pound, it became a little bit even more serious, and suddenly we figured out we really don't have many high quality products to export, because most of those unserious investors over the past 20-30 years were only focusing on the local Egyptian market. They were not developing their products. They were just selling
every investor
lousy
is
quality.
looking for his own interest. He doesn't care about whatever people want. He only wants his own money and interest to increase.
Yes, and this is because the Egyptian government was protecting so many sectors over the past 20-30 years. They thought they were dealing with serious investors, and unfortunately it turned out that after 20-30 years that they were not dealing with serious investors, and now those so-called investors are even asking for more protection for another 10 years, like for example in the automotive sector. And this is something totally unacceptable, that the government keeps on giving them more years to protect their products, because actually what they did not do in the past 20 years, they're definitely not going to do it in the next 10 years. And the only one who's suffering from this is the Egyptian consumer and the Egyptian citizen, who is paying double and triple the prices for a product which has a very bad quality compared to any product he should could import from abroad. So I think the only solution for raising the competitiveness of the Egyptian product is to open the competition for more products from abroad. Of course, at the beginning, all the local producers will say you will ruin the industry. I'm sorry, in so many sectors we don't have an industry. It was just a local business to make money from the Egyptian market. So we need more competition in order to be able to become an export nation.
Well, Mr. Mohamed, Sheta Media Expert, thank you very much for joining us, and
welcome
welcome once again to Breakfast.
My pleasure, like
Thank
always.
you.
Thank you.
And we are moving now to a quick break, so please stay tuned.